If you are the host, press star now. Otherwise, please wait, and you will be joined into the conference. Please announce yourself.
Hey, this is the board. Who do we have on the phone?
Jeanette?
Okay. All right, so we got Jeanette. Cheryl, is that you?
I'm also getting data on like attendance for people that yeah, still lost. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyway, I did do that. The other thing
Appreciate it.
to let you know, I got this year, this, the rest of the month, I'm finishing up doing some stuff with the RTO process. Okay.
Okay.
Keebler,
Okay.
and get that rolling before.
Good.
Okay. Say this for later.
Bring something just in case.
Well, I didn't know what the food situation was going to be. I'm kicking off a
What do you need?
5-week.
It looks pretty close to what you brought.
It is, yeah. No, I brought basically chicken and
I usually
vegetables,
want that.
so it worked out. That'll be tomorrow's lunch.
Just don't turn them up to where they burn our retinas. That's good. These lights can get so bright that I think we will have a tan and leave. Yeah. We're missing a couple, but we got a quorum.
Yeah. I think we have a quorum here, so we're ready to.
Cheryl Turner.
Cheryl.
I think we're about ready. All right, Dr. Williams, let's take it away.
All right, board members, the last applicant group to appear before you this afternoon for the 2019 application cycle is representing Huntersville Charter High School. They propose to locate in Mecklenburg County. In year one, they expect to have open with grades 9 through 10, 210 students. In year two, grades 9 through 11 with 310 students. Year three, 9 through 12 with 410 students. Year four, 9 through 12 with 420 students, and year 5, 9 through 12 with 405 students. The applicant group did not provide a number at grade level, a number of students for their estimated final enrollment, but we can assume that their estimated final grade level is grade 12. The LEA has supplied an LEA impact statement, but no due diligence has been requested. This applicant group has not made any special requests. This is a repeat applicant who received a clarification interview last year. This applicant group has not been provided with any assistance and is not partnering with an EMO or CMO. The application has been deemed complete.
All right, we'll have the board come up and introduce themselves.
Hi, Jim Secunda, Board Chair.
Don't be shy. We'll let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll let him give a short little introduction of the school. So we'll let all the board members introduce themselves first.
I'm Dale Halton, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Sarah McCauley, Secretary.
Laura Nicholson, Treasurer. Jennifer Nichols, board.
All right. All right, thank y'all. If you want to go ahead and give us a quick couple minutes, just any kind of updates or anything that y'all have from the last time we talked with y'all. Otherwise, we'll just start talking about the application and start asking you questions.
Yeah, we're moving right along. We have our campus. It's about 25 acres. We're now grading the area, set up this great trade school. It's going along smoothly. We're raising money. It's going to take a lot of money and devoted corporate sponsors. But we're excited about it. This will be a state-of-the-art place. Only one, I think, in the whole country, if I'm not mistaken.
So you've already purchased the land for the facility?
In a good spot. We already have an Asperger's school on campus, a reformed house that was already there. That's up and going. We have kids in there, teaching them, and it's going pretty smooth.
All right, well, we'll talk about the application for a little while, and then we'll have lots of questions for you, I'm sure. Y'all can have a seat. All right. What are some things y'all are thinking about on this application? Mission, purposes, and goals.
I would like to hear how Aspire Carolinas Foundation and the interrelationship there and how that works. And I understand the campus is 3 schools on one campus, the other 2 being private. And if they could just speak to that, how that structure and that relationship. I noticed on their org chart, nothing leaves the organization of this school that they're proposing, the charter school, but in the application there appears that maybe there could be some bleeding over of resources or staff supporting between each of the facilities.
Related to that, they mentioned that they're grading ready for the school that's not been approved, so they're using foundation private monies for that. Just explain how that relationship's working.
All right, how about anything on the education plan? I mean, I thought it was innovative in a way that, you're talking about integrating the trades into, into a curriculum, because you're still going to have to follow the CCR. And, I think a lot of that, when you look at the trades, is how well does the budget match up with it? Because sometimes the trades, it's more expensive to buy a CNC machine than it is to buy a textbook. So when you look at kind of things like that, of how that works out, and I think I'd like to hear more about the partners that they plan to have. You talked about corporate partners and stuff, so I'd like to hear more about kind of the corporate partners that they're thinking, because I think it'd be very difficult for a school like this to work without having partners in the business community.
A couple of my questions, Stephen, revolve around the day-to-day schedule, the A versus B day, 4 learning blocks each day, kind of thing. So I'm assuming it's a year-long school, just clarification on that piece. There was a statement that all students must have a level 3 on their state assessments to graduate, which conflicts with the goals, which state that there'd be 51, 54, 57, etc. proficiency at the grade level. So if you're only 50% proficient, then that means 51%, then that means 49% did not meet the level 3. So
Which means they won't graduate.
which means they won't graduate. So how are are those kids repeating that? A little bit on the curriculum with the breakdown by grade, like 9, 10, 11, 12. Math 1 and 2 were specified, but then when you got to grades 3 and 4, or 11, 12, it did not mention Math 3 instead of integrated Math 1, and then, so I was confused on the math piece. So, that part in the curriculum.
Related, building on the testing question there, on number 6 in their academicals says that state administered tests, 75% of students will achieve proficiency in one or more areas. So is the anticipation that they might take 3 tests, English, biology, and math, and only have to pass 2 of those or 1 of those, or, it's confusing. Clarify that proficiency and what they expect students to achieve.
I would like them to talk too about, I think this is definitely a school that is needed, but a little bit more to the evidence of need that they have found. And also how they would address the issue if they had a student enrolled that really wanted the college prep course diploma versus grade.
And back to the enrollment piece, are we anticipating on accepting students at all grades eventually? So when we have a 9-12 school, will we accept a senior coming in? And how will that be impacted by the way this plan is laid out, especially for trying to attain that certificate in an area? Certificate of completion. I'm assuming that certificate of completion is in one of the trades.
They also mentioned the hiring of a principal later this year for the school to open in 2021. Maybe just a question about securing the funding to make that a reality. Where's that coming from?
I was interested in that timeline too, because the job will be posted in January, so I just wonder if they're on track with that. And also, just questioned the board members bringing education background. I only really saw one.
Yeah, that was one of my questions too, about what kind of K-12 background information or experience they have. Anything else on governance and capacity as we move into operations? I know we talked about in operations, I know we talked some in the clarification about how transportation plan was pretty weak. And so we can talk about that some
And
more.
food service.
And then I think always questions, can the facility be ready in time? But it sounds like they're got to jump off everybody else because of the way that they're structured.
Yeah, along with that facility piece, the cafeteria says capacity is gonna be 140, and there's definitely more students than that. Of course, I know in high school you use a block lunch, but how do we capacitate that? And no gym, so what do you do about PE classes, which are required and they have in their plan? No library, no athletics, so, are parents gonna be, how are you gonna inform parents from upfront that, I guess the draw is the trades. So, just making sure you're very clear in the language to the parents that, this is available, but this is not.
Folks on the phone are telling me to speak into the mic to make sure that they can hear. I think it's really hard to hear when you're on the phone. Sorry, Sherry.
My brain won't let me rewind.
Sorry.
Okay, how about let's a few things on budget.
Explain how the 6 core content teachers that are in the budget, how are they gonna do also the career courses when they've also gotta do the required EOG courses? Just doesn't seem like there's enough there to cover both, unless they can find some very unique teachers. Where are they gonna recruit them from?
Then you would have to worry about their level of certification.
Right.
Yeah, which is tricky in high school.
It is very tricky in high school.
And 6 is not enough to cover 2 grades, 8 classes a day.
Well, I mean, you can have, well, maybe not.
And the break even is very close to the projected enrollment for the
close.
first year. And I know they talked about the OCS pathway, and even the ECS, which is Certificate of Completion versus a high school diploma. But those are huge impacts on a budget, and I didn't really see those covered well in the budget for staffing of that.
And I know we touched on transportation, but there's no money in the budget at all for transportation.
Okay. All right, well then, we're gonna start asking you some questions then. It's good, we kind of do it like that so that you've been thinking as it comes in. So, Rita, I think you had some questions, Ms. Hare, about the,
Yes, if you could just speak to the structure between Aspire Carolina Foundation, the office that's located on the campus, the way the organization, who's working with who's funding who, determinations that are made, how the foundation plays into the role of the school. Anyone who wants to address that? As well as the other 2 schools that exist there. If you can just kind of just lay that out for us so we can
Yeah, we have
see
one
what's happening.
existing school, which is the Halton School. That is a 3-8 school for kids on the high end of the autism spectrum. That is in operation. The foundation actually owns everything on the grounds. We own the buildings.
Okay.
We will own all the buildings. We actually, at this time, with help from our financial advisors, we have a financial advisor team that we have hired called First Tryon. Our hope is that we can steer away from the management model and stay a foundation, a nonprofit, and run all the schools from that platform. That is our hope, and what we're hearing from the financial advisor at this time is we may, I'm not going to promise anything, look at each of them being an independent LLC, yet structured underneath Aspire Carolina's foundation.
Okay.
At this point, the reason that we went toward this model, and I know it's not a typical model, is that they can share services. We can hire one maintenance company that handles all the maintenance for all the buildings. Shared services is actually something our financial advisor has tried to get many of the educational institutions to do, and that's our platform from the very beginning. These schools have small numbers in the classroom. They are not cheap schools to run. We know that we will be fundraising between now and eternity. We understand that. That's part of our platform, is to be a fundraising model. We do not intend to be as heavily in debt as some are, whether it's the charter school or the private independent school. Currently, we have no debt. We know that this next school is going to cost us more, but currently we have no debt. We own the grounds, we own the building, we own the school that we're operating, and we have no debt in any of that. So we understand we're about ready to get into a little bit of debt, but we're also doing a heavy fundraising campaign. In fact, we're in front of a large corporation tomorrow with a very big naming opportunity. We will be putting names on these buildings. We will be bringing in our corporate partners. So fundraising is a huge part of our platform from the foundation. I run the day-to-day as executive director and founder of the foundation. And so we're heavily involved in making sure that every one of these schools that comes up is supported and that their needs are met. And I would say that if Heidi Bertino-Dahm were here today, she would tell you that she's shocked because every time she asks for something, we say, we'll get right back with you, and she gets it. So that's our hope always, is to support them at that.
So
Not pie in the sky, though. So,
will Huntersville Charter High School lease from the foundation?
yes. Again, each of these schools has the ability to pay something, but none of them have the ability to come up on their own. This is about a $16 million project to build the charter trade high school. We're not skimping. We have labs. We also, our corporate partners are committed to helping us put equipment in the labs. So we have corporate partners that are going to help us get the materials that we need, and some of them have offered also to help us also with finding the right trade certified instructor on the trade sides. They will come from industry. They will be certified in their trade, and they will be able to teach current practices in those trades.
Can you tell us some about some of the partners that you have?
Well, probably the biggest partner that we have right now that we're finalizing what the number is tomorrow is Lowe's. And so we're very excited about a partnership with Lowe's. They're already committed to us. Lowe's has, I don't know if you're aware, a program called We Are Generation T, T for Trade. They started that program about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Their goal is to give equipment and support students in the trades so that they have what they need to learn the skills that they need for their particular industry. They're excited because not only do we have intention of using that every day, those tools and the equipment, but also that we intend for students to come out with certification in that particular trade and be ready, if they choose to go into that career path. Lowe's has been wanting for a long time, as they've been asked from their vendors, to find an outlet for true trade education. And they've struggled in the area, in our area, to find partners to do that with. So We Are Generation T also gives us lots of incredible information and statistics that are out there now on each of the different trades that we're looking at. They are excited. Tomorrow we have a chance to present to them. We'll be in front of their charitable foundation tomorrow for an hour meeting because they're so excited about what we're doing. That number, we don't know, but we've asked for a big one, the biggest number they've been asked for. So we're excited. Novant is excited about working with us. We're hoping that they will do an education path with us. They've, last week when they were on campus, intimated that there might be 3 different areas we might look at. One of them was interesting because we're going to have a culinary program, and they brought up the fact that they want to do a mobile kitchen, which was surprising to me, but that's something that's on their radar, as well as, of course, medical coding was on their radar, and of course, that's on our radar, CNA certification. So that was something we brought to them with. We're interested, if they're interested. So another organization of Ingersoll Rand is very interested in partnering with us. We have several corporate entities that are in the area. So we're working on HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and forming our partnerships. We have a coalition potential that maybe brings 9 HVAC companies together to work with us. Each of these, SME is interested in working with us, and of course that's advanced manufacturing, that's their education wing. They bring Tooling U, which is their education curriculum. So each of these areas has education curriculum, and they will make that available to us. We're excited about that because it's current, it's relevant, and it's industry specific. So we are in conversations with all of those.
Thank you for that. Let's see, I think that answered everything that everybody had on the mission, purposes, and goals.
I guess the Halton School just opened in August.
Yes.
And how is that going?
Great. We're, again, we started with a very small group of students. We only have 5 because we got the building 5 days before school opened, and of course we couldn't do tours. It was a late 1800s building, so we didn't feel that we should bring those students in and families until we were ready for them to actually be there with or without a hard hat. So we had 5 families that were so excited about us opening and were willing to take that chance without being able to take the tour. Right now we've been giving tours. We've been inviting private independent schools and other schools in to come and see what we're doing, and they are so impressed with our platform. We did not scrimp on anything, and the parents are getting they're excited. If they were standing here today, they would cry because we've seen tremendous growth in those young men. No girls were praying for girls. Please pray for girls. We'd like to see some girls in the school, but we've seen tremendous change. We have families that are from outside of our area. That surprised me, and frankly, that was the reason why we went outside the 485, was to keep families from driving so far to get to these schools. And yet we have someone from Winston-Salem, and it breaks my heart that they're having to do that drive every day, but they do it. And we're showing somebody from Salisbury, somebody from Winston-Salem. So that's what we're trying to avoid, and bringing it out to them. But again, these schools are so needed, so it's just what it is.
Do you plan for your Halton school to have a carryover into the high school from 8th grade to the high school with those students?
Well, so that's interesting. That's a great question. We have parents that are already saying to us, we're interested in our children going to the trade school. That's not something that we're going to choose for them. Again, whether a student is ready to go on to a school that is college preparatory, we're happy for that. But we know there will be some students that will come out of that school that will go into the high school, if, of course, if it's lottery, if they get in. We can't mandate that school allows them in, which we could, but they have to be in the lottery if the lottery is the way in, same as any other student. But I will tell you this, we have, at the Halton School, we have thrown so many wonderful things at these kids to see what their giftings are, what their abilities are, what do they love. One of the projects that the kids did last week was we got them engine kits to see who might be interested. We've thrown electrical, we've thrown engineering concepts at them. I mean, they're getting it in their coursework, but we're excited to see where their giftings are, where are their abilities, where are their desires. We've got a boy right now that wants us to have a goat farm. I don't think we'll put that in our platform, but he really wants us to do that. So I think some of these children will naturally gravitate to a charter school, but I can't say for sure what the family school is like.
Can you elaborate on that area over there in Huntersville where you're looking to locate or currently have the schools? Are there a lot of new developments going up around there as well?
Well, if you know anything about the Huntersville corner that we're on the corner of Beatty's Ford and Hambright Road. Fortunately, when we open, there will be a traffic light there. Thank God for that. We're next to Hopewell High School. They have 60 acres next to us. We have 25 acres. We are on the corner, so we're the corner property. Up and down Beatty's Ford and up and down Hambright are other schools. Just south of us is Latta Plantation and the Raptor Center, if you know where that's at. Up north of us on Beatty's Ford is the historic Rural Hill property. So Beatty's Ford is considered, Sarah, help me, historic?
It's a historic corridor.
Historic corridor. Come. Yes. It is the historic corridor. So there are only so much development that is going to take place there. What we see, we have a lot of schools around us, but can you talk a little bit about the historic corridor?
Well, the Beatty's Ford Road, which runs north and south between Lake Norman and the city of Charlotte and into Charlotte, is by Huntersville and others declared a historic corridor. It was probably the first thoroughfare in Mecklenburg County because it was over on the river, near the Catawba River, developed, and then Huntersville really sort of developed east of there. It is a large development. There are numerous subdivisions already built, have a history there. Around Hopewell High School, there are 4 or 5 subdivisions. There's some others that I know are on the books that are coming out of the ground. There's also several communities used to this area, the area around the school, the proposed high school was under the Mecklenburg County zoning ordinance. And there were several subdivisions planned there that never came into building. They're on lots that, some of them became owned by Habitat. They come under the Huntersville zoning ordinance now. And those 30-year-old plots still stand as they are. And they are there are a lot of different priced housing being within 3 or 4 miles of our proposed site. A lot of activity there.
All right, let's jump into the education plan a little bit here. Sherry, I think you had some questions about the curriculum and learning blocks, and can't read my handwriting here.
Ms. Nichols, are you gonna answer those?
I can?
Okay. So it is a year-long schedule, correct?
No, it's not a full
It's a
year.
semester schedule?
Yes. One of the things that we wanted to do was give the students the opportunity to take, especially in their freshman year, the opportunity to take a couple of exploratory classes. So a freshman might take electrical 1 and plumbing 1, and just to see where their long-term desire might be. We expect that by year 2 then, that they would have decided where their path is. There's enough room, because it's 22 credits to graduate, there's enough room for them to explore a
There's
little bit.
plenty of room for that, but if we're speaking of an A day and a B day, you're talking about different classes on A and different classes on B?
Yes. So we're talking about a year long, right? Or did I
That's
just
what
say?
I'm
we were
asking
saying-
you.
Yeah, it's year long.
Are you saying year
Okay, it is
round?
a year-long.
Year long.
You talking about traditional schedule?
Traditional scheduling,
September to June.
yes, thank you.
year-long
September.
That's,
curriculum.
when, I was like, there's no way they can get 8 classes in this first semester and 8
No,
classes
no,
in
no,
the
no,
second
no,
semester.
no. It's full year coursework, but it's not year-round school. I guess that's where I'm trying to. So September
Yes,
to
and you're
June.
correct. The state only requires 22 credits to graduate. You've got a buffer of 10.
We do, and that's where our career and technical comes in, and the ability also for them to explore a little bit, especially that freshman year. I think it's a good thing to explore a little bit, because most of our kids, if we think about it, in middle school are not really sure. They don't know. We're going to have to do a lot of career work with them to talk about what they like. That's why we've been doing that in the Halton School, is find out, what do you like? What are you interested in? What appeals to you? And I think we'll have to do some of that in their freshman year, which also we intend to do some things after school. It was interesting when Navant came out, they have a gentleman that works there that makes wooden bow ties. And she said, would you like him to teach that? I said, yes, we want to do enrichment activities after school. We want to expose these kids in all kinds of areas to see where their interests are. So if after school we do enrichment classes that we make wooden bow ties, or we learn how to take apart one of the bird, what do you call those, scooters, and learn how to repair it. But these are the kinds of things that again, give our kids an opportunity to look at where my skills are. What do I like? What do I not like?
So with that leads me to a couple other questions. Your trades classes, are they going to be state CTE classes or your own?
Well, we're going to have to use what's out in the industry, because this is not going to sound very politically correct, so I'm just going to say it. One of the folks that we talked to, if we decided to do welding, said you can't possibly use the state coursework because you will burn something down. Because he said it's just too outdated. A lot of what's happening now is just very specific and very high tech. And so they urged us to use the curriculums that are being used in the industry for certification. They said use our curriculums because they are state-of-the-art, they are current, and kids can then go on and be certified sooner than what they
So that
would.
leads me to the question, you said the kids will graduate with an industry-specific certificate, so.
It will tell them,
will
right.
Welding, I can't even remember the National Welding Association, will they take an exam from that association to get that
Now,
industry-specific certificate?
Okay, that's great, because some of these industries, what we're gonna do with them would get them into the career, but not necessarily would they have been ready to take the test yet. Some of them might. So it's like with CNA. If we did a CNA program and we started the freshman year, by the time they were seniors, they probably will be able to take that test, but you can't take it till you're 18,
Correct.
right? So they would come out, and until they turned 18, they would have done all their coursework and be ready. I can't say necessarily that that's going to be the same for advanced manufacturing or right now, or HVAC or plumbing or electrical. So we've got to find out where that certificate is going to take them and what they might need. So if I wanted to be a master electrician, trust me, that senior is not going to be that. But now they will have done specific coursework and be ready to go out into that field, and that will tell their potential employer what they have, where they've gotten to. So in some, like a CNA, we could get them all the way there if we do that program and if our provider wants to work with us, which we hope. We could get them all the way there, but can we in every industry? I cannot tell you that we can.
So they will not necessarily graduate with the industry specific, they probably will not.
They will end
They will
up,
have a lot of the foundational pieces.
they will, and that certification is, this is how far we've gotten, this is what we've taken, and this tells my potential employer, this is what I know.
So then with staffing, you will have a heavy focus on the trades, so a majority of your staff will probably be tradesmen. So how do you hit the 50%?
Yeah, I don't think that would be the case, because we're gonna limit how many trade options we have. So I think we'll be about 50-50 on
So
that.
you think you comfortable?
Yeah, I'm not uncomfortable with that, because we're gonna limit how many trades that we're going to do in this particular school.
You're gonna have to, or you'll just be,
Well, and that's the other thing is, we decided to do a school of 420 kids because we want to do this very, very well. So that will limit how many trade areas we give to these students, how many options. But within it, I think we can do a great job of giving them additional experiences, but I think we're going to limit exactly what we're going to offer. We will offer plumbing, we will offer electrical, we will offer HVAC, mechanical. We will offer computer science and IT. We will offer culinary. We know we're going to offer those. How many more we're going to add, we haven't decided. Maybe one, maybe two.
That's
But see,
a lot.
I mean, you just listed six,
6.
and then,
HVAC, plumbing, electrical, IT,
Culinary, computer science.
and culinary.
and computer
IT.
science.
Well, computer science, IT, we consider one. We consider IT one. So we're actually
But
looking at
you
5
only-
areas.
But there's 6 teachers in the school.
Right, we haven't decided what the 6th one is going to be. Now, no, there's
But
6
they-
on the, 6 on the core content side and 6.
There were 5 additional in CTE, so I missed that when I asked that
So
question.
it's 11 teachers.
There are 11
It is, and the
teachers
12th teacher
for
is
200
our
students.
IT instructor,
Yeah.
so there are,
They'll
yeah,
probably be certified.
yeah, so we're not, yeah,
Okay.
we're not, our industry providers do not want our North Carolina Public School teachers who teach math to teach HVAC.
Right.
We don't either.
Okay, we've got about 10 more minutes of questions, so
Speak to the piece about the
Transportation.
goals. You say to graduate, they all have to have level 3s on their EOCs.
Well, so that's our goal. Whether or not we can achieve that. And, to your point, when we were here last time, we understand some of our kids will come in a little behind. So we're not, I guess we're not completely out of the loop of understanding that we know some of our kids will come in struggling in content subjects. And so to speak to that, that's one of the reasons why we wanted a study hall every day next to the lunch hour. Now, maybe when we hire the head of school, they will decide that they're not super comfortable with that. But I want every child, every student to have some study time because I believe we will have students who come in that are a little behind. We will have a 0 hour where they can come in and get extra help. We'll have some after-school time where they can come and get extra help. We know that we're going to need to offer that. So can we get them all there? That's the goal. That's the goal. Can we get them all there? Some of them may be on the occupational course of study. I don't know that we can get them all there. So I think we're realistic in that we know we need to provide additional supports. And this is a hands-on school. It's going to lend itself to kids who might be struggling in content areas We know that. But if you've read any of the statistics, which I get very excited about what other states are doing, we've seen statistics in other states that say when they start these trade schools, that oftentimes their scores go up. And that's because I think, and again, there were lots of different reasons in there, but I believe it's because those students suddenly get excited about coming to school. And they get excited because they see why they're there. And they can apply some of those things to what they're doing. And those industry trades instructors can tell them, yes, you need that. Pay attention, because you need that class. You need what you're learning in there to come and do this. And I think that as an intimate school, which we will be, having advisory groups with our students, making sure that we have that time to find out what's going on with them, stay closely connected to our students. I think what we're going to find out is that they become better students. Now, that's what they found when we look at statistics in other states. I hope we'll find the same thing here. Again, we don't have a track record yet. We've got to find out, but I believe we'll see some change.
I guess my concern is that your graduation policy states that they must pass.
Can we do an
I
amendment?
wish they all could.
I wish they could.
I do.
I wish they could. I want them to.
I want mine to.
I want them to. I wanted mine to.
All
I
right,
want-
we've got to know about the transportation, so let's talk about transportation a little bit.
The board.
Yeah, but that's what entrepreneur tools.
Bus is not in the budget, but we're hoping to work with the parents and get a ride-sharing program going. As you all know, transportation is very expensive, and right now that's not in the budget. But we're hopeful the parents will collectively work with getting the kids to campus.
I have to say that is the norm in North Mecklenburg. If you look at the other schools that are Lake Norman Charter, Davidson, Community School of Davidson.
But are you
Pine Lake.
potentially limiting some students from access? Especially students who need this type of
You
school?
don't have to have buses, but you have to have some sort of plan to make sure that no student is denied access to the school because of transportation issues.
I believe the rideshare program will do that. If we have to cross that bridge, we can, but I believe the rideshare program works. We've done it in every other school that I've been associated with, and we've just made sure that we connect them and connect them well. And we hope to have a volunteer parent. We will start it, I'm sure, but hope to have a volunteer parent or two that would help us to make sure that they're reaching out and that we're connecting families. It is the norm there. I hate to say it, it is. But the other thing is they use Olympic transportation. I don't know if you're aware of that. But they also use Olympic transportation and have parents that can reach out, and then there's some cost associated for some of them. But, you know, we know that Olympic is up in that area. We know that they provide a lot of transportation. I was behind one of them the other day, driving a child to the Montessori school just down the road from us. So, you know, is that something that we have to do? I don't know that yet. We don't know that. But right now, you know, we have 420 students. There's not a lot of money coming in with just 420 students, but yet we're committed to making sure that the trade school platform is good and it's viable and they're doing well. And before we would do anything larger than that, we need to make sure we can do it well on the small scale. But at 420 kids, there's not a lot of room in the budget. You've seen it. It's tight. We're going to be fundraising like crazy. We are now with the homeschool. We're not afraid of that, but how you're going to be able to do that coming out of the gate, I mean, are you aware that that the academy in Union County, the buses broke down the first week? I mean, you can't afford. It's just tough. It's tough. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, and you're talking about high school students. I mean, it's different if, you know, K through 4.
This isn't a K.
I don't see a rideshare plan being a big problem for a trade school in high school.
With only 420 kids.
Majority of my high school students ride a bus.
420, you mean by year 5?
Not in Hunter.
Yeah, 420 is
Ferries and everything.
with 22 kids in the classroom. 420 is where we're going to be.
All right, we got time for a few more questions.
I just want to ask some really simple yes/no timeline questions. Have you posted the job for school director?
We're getting ready to. That,
Getting ready to.
we've put it together. We have the job description ready, but we have
Okay.
not posted yet because I wanted to see what was gonna happen today.
Okay, have you launched your Facebook page for the school?
We will. We have not done that again, waiting on today and,
That was for November, December. Is the site work completed?
oh, that's November of that's this, sorry, do I have it in the wrong?
Oh, I think it was 2019.
Okay.
Okay. Is the site work complete?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Hold on, Mr.
Yeah.
Ford, we're in the middle of asking a couple questions.
On the school site, is the site work complete?
We're in mass grading right now. That will be completed, in first of April. We have
Can you
our-
talk into the mic, please, because we need to make
We
sure.
have our building permit that's into the county. We should have a building permit by
Is the
April.
construction loan secured?
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay, Mr. Ford?
I think I got clarified, my question. So is transportation provided or no?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Question about the makeup of the board. Just appreciate your response to this. When looking at the application, you're estimating about 67%, 68% of your students will be non-white. Is there a?
Non-white?
Non-white. Yeah, it says 28% white, so that's 62%. My math is correct. Correct? Am I wrong about that?
Pages out.
I'm not seeing that data.
It's in the summary.
Hang on, I'll find it.
Pull it out.
It's towards the front of the app. You have the
Yeah,
breakdown
it's
of
in
your,
the breakdown at the
the
beginning.
breakdown of the anticipated enrollment of students. I want to be clear before I ask the question, because I don't want to. Yeah, it says,
Page 8?
anticipated, yeah, page 8, anticipated racial ethnicity, white 28%. So I'm just saying then that means 62% would be non-white. I'm just curious, are you committed to having diversity on your board, committed to having diversity of your staff? Because for reasons of the importance of having diversity on your board and on your staff, if you're planning to attract 2/3 of your population who don't look like us.
Understood. We intend to have diversity on the school board. We did not intend to do that in the first year. We intend to open with the board that we have now. We intend to have diversity among our staff members. Again, we want the most qualified person for the job, but we will search long and hard to make sure that we're representative of the community. Both the community around us and the community in the school.
That's what, I mean, I thought it was, interesting now looking at that, because they had, that's what Charlotte Meck's numbers are.
Yeah, that's
And it's like exactly what they are, but I mean, when you look at Huntersville, it looks like Huntersville's like 81% white, 11.5% black, 2 or more races, 3%.
Well, it says provide your projected enrollment for each
Yeah.
of the groups.
Yeah, and it looks like it was just,
That is what Charlotte Mack says.
That is what
well, but you have to remember too, and I know this is probably a broader discussion than what we're talking about, but I mean, there's a statutory mandate that the charter school shall attempt to model
Make
the
every attempt.
demographics of the LEA, not the specific, I mean, I think Huntersville is a lot different than South Charlotte. I mean, there's just there's a big there, and I mean, it takes an hour and a half to get between those two places, especially if you get on I-77, unless you want to pay for the toll. There's a big difference there. But I mean, the statute says you do what the LEA is, and I don't know if that's why they've done that, and I'm not trying to give them an answer, but
If you look at what is next door to us at Hopewell, they have a larger population of non-white students than many of the other schools up and down the road that we're on. We are hopeful that many of the communities around us, and we have mixed income basis in those communities around us, that we'll get students from there. But if you look at Hopewell, and I don't know if you have.
And I'm not suggesting you won't, I'm just suggesting that having a focus on diversity in all areas of governance of the school and administration of the school
Understood,
and teaching is going to
understood.
help you achieve that goal.
Understood. And in our marketing of the school, we will show diverse populations. And we understand we need to do that. Actually, and if we're going to be very transparent about our survey, we had the largest population that was interested in sending their students to this school were the non-white. If you saw any of the survey pages, was the non-white group. So we truly believe we'll get more diversity in our school than some of the other charters.
All right, we've got time for one more question. Ms. Chair, do you have a question? We'll give it to the chair.
So you just, and I forgive me if this was answered. Structurally, you're the founder and the executive director of the foundation. And you're gonna sit on the board
Of this school.
of the school. And the foundation board is also going to run the private school?
Does currently, yes.
And, okay, so,
The plan, the long-term plan, though, just so you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the long-term plan is for us to add, and we talked about that when we came the last time, is to add additional members, up to 9, reduce the number of Aspire board members that are on that, and make sure we have a liaison from the Aspire board onto that board long-term.
so 2 boards.
Well, Aspire will always be its own board. Aspire board will stand alone eventually.
Just they're the same now.
Foundation.
They're the same right now.
Yeah.
Just right now
Right,
for the,
understood.
because
So those
one
are
of the
two
things we wanted to make sure we did this very, very well. And we want to be able to add skilled members to that board, but we want to make sure we know what skills are needed. And we have corporate members that are interested, so we want to make sure that everybody's vetted and that we make sure that we have a strong board for that school. We want to make sure that we're tethered, but we want a strong board for that school.
How, did you share how much assets, like what's the assets of the foundation?
They're 990 was in here, I think.
So we have that information in the 990, and I think you have that, but we can answer
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the
questions
appendices.
specifically
I'm looking for it
if
in
you
there.
want it. I guess the one thing I would say is we've talked a lot about the shared resources and the benefits that we see. We also understand that there's risk, right? We have 2 private schools and then a public charter trade school that are going to leverage the same assets. So it's incumbent on us to make sure that there's no commingling of those funds. So we understand that. We're working with legal representation to talk through, do we do an LLC? How do we approach the real estate and the assets so that we can, with great clarity, make sure that there's no commingling of funds. It'll be more than, we'll certainly, as a baseline, have separate assets for each school or separate accounts for each school, but we'll certainly do more than that. We've had 2 initial dialogues with legal counsel on that, and just we'll have to follow up.
Okay,
Questions on the 990?
I'm looking for
Yeah,
it.
we're trying to find it. What,
It's appendix A44.
So I can go through, if it's helpful. When you look at the 990, that's the 2018, I think, 990. A lot of those assets that you,
End of June
2019. So when you
so
look
what's
at,
like on the balance sheet? What's the assets?
it's about 4.6 million.
And
A
how
lot
much
of
of that
those.
is cash?
Do you want the cash position right now? Is that more helpful?
That would be
Yes.
helpful.
It's 1.7 million.
1.7
Yes.
million.
And the difference, the delta between what we have on the 990 and today is assets that have been used for the infrastructure, for the education village. So all of the site work we did, the Halton School, the purchase of the 25 acres. We have, great details on where the use of assets as well. We have about 1.7 million today.
So when you're talking about LLC, each school would be an LLC? Because can you be a nonprofit in an LLC? I thought you had to be a
No.
corporation.
The foundation level will be a not-for-profit, and the LLC will sit below the foundation.
Is like a management organization of the school?
No, it's actually, the LLC is given so that that's simply for liability, to make sure that one school can't topple the others. So you have insurance specific to each of the schools. We have insurance, we have so much insurance.
So who would hold the charter in that
We would hold the
circumstance?
charter, the LLC would simply be the fiduciary.
I mean, it almost sounds
So
like a management company to
It's
me.
not, that's what we're trying to avoid.
Because, I mean, I think the only people that can hold the charter is a nonprofit corporation.
Right.
And we are,
Right, and so, you know, I don't understand how the school's gonna be an LLC, but then it's managed by the nonprofit. I'm,
well, that's, our legal representation is looking at that now. We don't want to form a management company.
yeah, I
I
think
don't
y'all,
want to form a for-profit arm if we can help it.
it sounds like we're almost kind of putting the cart before the horse on some of this. We're talking about, you know, down the road having two LLCs split up. And I think y'all were just trying to help us to understand how you're planning to make sure that money doesn't commingle, funds doesn't
Yeah, because they have their own,
commingle.
like, the whole school has its own bank account. The funds go into that bank account when parents pay their tuition. So, you know, we just are careful about making sure that each school, that we don't commingle the funds.
Yeah, just have your lawyer look real close at that.
Although, they are starting that right now. Thank you.
All right, that's good. We're good on questions.
Joe,
To stay online,
you had something to say.
Joe doesn't even get to vote. Just messing with you, Joe. Let's move on into our, let's move on into our, into some discussion, and the floor is open for motions as well.
Or is it open?
So, there are a couple high schools that are in the same vein that are charter schools. I think, is that true? Apprenticeship High
Yeah,
School?
Prentice, we just opened this.
Apprentice.
Just in Monroe.
And then there's another one. It's an entrepreneur.
That one's not,
No.
It's not trade.
anymore.
They didn't make it.
Okay,
They relinquished their charter.
and they were in Charlotte Mac.
You're asking if there's another,
Like trade
Trade
school, high
school.
school.
one in Union County?
Apprentice.
That's the one I'm aware of.
There was a failed one in Charlotte.
That's what I was.
Yeah, it had they had all planned around one community, and they ended up getting, the facility
move
fell
their
apart, but they, instead of taking a year delay, I think they just found another facility, and it wasn't where they had marketed. I mean, it was a mess. I think this one, to me, feels a lot different because they've already got a facility in place and they've got money behind it, and I think that makes it, you know, those kind of things, you know, I'm not as concerned about.
I think every charter would be envious to have a power of a nonprofit foundation behind them like this. Very few have that opportunity. And I appreciate that they came back after last year's little missteps on issues, and glad to see you back in full health with us. But
And I'm
I'd like
glad-
to see this.
I'm glad that you
Opportunity.
didn't do acceleration. 'Cause
Or two.
We talked about that, but I again, just reiterating what Joe said, having a foundation behind you and the innovative part of this is so needed. The trade schools are so needed. I know there's a lot that you were gonna have to resolve during your if you were to have a ready-to-open process with the legal, how it's all gonna play out. But I feel like your board is strong enough to do that.
Any other comments, questions, or motions?
I make a motion that we move this forward.
All right, so the motion by Linda Lynn Kakadelis is to recommend to the state board Huntersville Charter High School for ready-to-open status. Is there a second to that motion?
Motion by Linda Lynn Kakadelis is to recommend to the state board.
That was me.
Tobacco.
Yeah,
Oh, that
all
was
right,
you.
we got a second by Ms. Hare. Do we have any?
I couldn't hear what the motion was.
The motion was to move them forward for ready-to-open by Linda Lynn, seconded by Rita Hare.
And by you.
Okay.
And then
By your
then then there was my echo, which
That was
Counts.
haunting.
That was haunting, wasn't it?
I think,
do I really sound like that?
That's terrible, Steve, yes.
Very careful.
All right. Any discussion or debate on the motion?
I mean, I think they have a lot of support from the community. I think it would be, I felt like I heard a lot of, we're gonna figure that out in the discussion today, which makes me a little bit nervous. I would have like to see more detail in the ed plan. There is some that lives in the appendices when you start to, if you can get under the hood and look a little bit more at their schedule. But I mean, this is a pretty significant undertaking, and I think it's good that they have that foundation support and the facility piece already underway, because I think the actual operational, whatever that word is, operationalizing the education program is what is actually going to be the hardest part of this. And I also think that I expect that there may be questions about the lack of transportation.
I was gonna
Because
ask
people, and honestly, I think you all should go back and vote to amend the charter to include transportation, at least in the first 2 years before you have students that can drive. I don't know, one would think, and unfortunately, the data suggests that students of low-income backgrounds tend to be the students that are potentially going to be attracted to such a trade school, but they would be the ones that wouldn't have transportation. So there's a high school in my area, they don't have transportation, but they've partnered with the local Triangle Transit Authority, and they give students bus passes, and the students can ride the bus. Ninth graders are able to do that. Couldn't do that with a kindergartner, but you can do something like that with high schoolers. So I think that the application, I'm going to support it. I would feel much better about that, if that were part of the puzzle, because I just, and the state board is rightly so focused on access. So I think if you want to be innovative and I think this is something that we need multiple pathways for students exiting high school that are not just necessarily a 4-year college. We desperately need this, but if it's going to be done right, it has to be accessible to all, or otherwise it looks like it's not designed for that. So.
All right.
I concur with you, Alex, with the lack of transportation. There's also, no food service. The application basically stated that they're exploring options. And I know you can't have everything fleshed out to perfection during the application phase, but it needs to look like that there was some thought. And with the looking at the breakdown of courses, I just think they need to be very careful about making sure that, and I know they will, that the state requirements are met. Like Math 3 was not listed. Math 3 is a requirement. Math 3 is an EOC course. Just making sure that those things get very well fleshed out during RTO, should it go forward to RTO. And I don't know, can we put a stipulation, or is it just a part of the process with RTO that transportation and lunch piece have to be corrected?
Well, they're going to have to meet the statutory requirement.
Which says they have to have a transportation plan.
No,
Well, it says that you have to.
have a
It
plan.
could be. It can't be a
That's what I
barrier.
said, plan.
Right,
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah. So,
But
I
as I
think-
was saying, the example that I gave of high school, like they had something
A plan.
that could get kids there.
Yeah.
Partnership with the local bus company. I don't know if there's buses there, but
Going
give us
that far
something.
up, yeah.
And I think, you have a month if this is approved before the state board meeting. Should have come up. I don't know. I think that, again, I think you have land, you're in a much better position than most people that come before us are. So that, unlike certainly the last group that got approved to do this type of work in Charlotte, which was a total failure, this is much more promising. I think this board would really like to see it be successful. And accessible. So success and access, and we want to make sure that happens.
All right. Any further discussion on the
Alex?
motion?
Yeah.
Cheryl?
I have some concerns about the ed plan. Not only the academic part of it, but the vagueness in the academic part and the vagueness in the trade part. What I want to make sure that the required stuff is there. What I don't want to happen is 3 years from now, we have a high school that's graduating kids who didn't finish the program, who didn't do what the state required. I don't want to ever have to do that again.
Yes.
And so I'm concerned when there are things that are required for graduation that they didn't even include in the plan. And then the trade part is still kind of really iffy. They know they want to do that. I mean, that's obviously the purpose of the school, but what they're going to do is still kind of iffy. I'm not overly comfortable with where the education plan is on this right now. I think the board is good. I think they're highly committed to this idea. They've proven they can run a school because they already have one. But I'm on the fence on this one about not so much. My concern is that we're approving an application that we know has to be fleshed out, and assuming that it's going to happen later, when we don't have the kind of infrastructure, whether that's staff or even the CSAB, to follow through on that until it blows up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion or debate on the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion? All right, on the phone, anybody in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so it's 2 opposed.
Sherry, did you raise your hand?
She
For
did, she raised her hand
opposed?
for a,
She's support it.
Acquiesce.
All right, so congratulations. Of course, this is a preliminary vote. The state board makes the real decision, so good luck to you. And that is the end of the application cycle.
Yes.
We think.
Unless
If
we
not-
get them back.
Unless we get them back, that's true. You would get them back.
All right. Time is 2:20.
2:30.
If are we ready to keep rolling here? Okay. Ashley,
Yes.
are you ready, or do
Yes,
you
I
need
just
time to
needed-
finish up the minutes and give us? Should we take a break?
Type out the vote.
Okay.
Yeah, let's think.
Let's take a break. We're gonna start at 2:30 promptly on amendments and hope that they go faster than 15 minutes. Right, Ashley?
Yes.
Yeah, I may need to leave if we're not ahead. I don't know. Well, how do we get?
deep dive on retouching.
Good.
I think they did great.
Are you going to the 27th?
Excuse me.
Lock thing, the 27th? Bob Letty.
With,
Bob Letty.
candidate.
Bob Letty's going to be the keynote.
To keep him.
I heard about it yesterday.
Is it the Muncie thing they have every
I signed up for it yesterday.
27th? Thank you.
I saw you wrote down. Everything you do to me. Because you're left-handed, I went like that.
Okay, that's National School Choice Week, that's what they have.
We're ready. Let's just jump in. Sorry, I was just.
And it's a lot.
All right. Let's go. What do we got?
We have a couple of amendments today. We have two. Before I get into those, I was going to do a review of some of the amendments we've processed in the office. As you know, state board policy allows certain amendments to be processed through our office, and then others need state board approval. In the last few months, we've had several bylaw and calendar amendments, and we are getting ready to prep or to process a one-year delay for Wake Preparatory Academy. That was one of the Wake charter schools that was scheduled to open this upcoming fall in Wake County that I believe it's the one that you had to reconsider, that state board sent back to you. They are going to delay for a year because of facility. They're not sure the facility will be up and running.
Is that Miss Parlay School?
Yep.
It's the
Yep.
charter one school.
Yeah, charter one, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Miss Parla.
So those ones are in our office currently, as well as a couple other ones that will be coming through the pipeline. Today we have two. We have Alamance Community School. This is a very simple mission change. They are scheduled to open in this upcoming school year in Alamance County. They will open with K-3 in the first year. And when you approved them, you requested that they amend their mission statement to take out helping students in kindergarten through 8th grade. So they are simply striking that grade reference, and I believe that was a recommendation from this board.
All in, well, I'll
Make a motion.
make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment.
A second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We just do a voice vote for these. All right, next.
All right, the second one today is from Charlotte Lab School. You recently heard from Charlotte Lab School because they were up for renewal. They received a 7-year renewal term. They are operating in Charlotte. They are currently serving 650 students in grades K to 8, which their original charter projected, going up to 8th grade. They have since decided that they would like to expand into high school. They are not requesting an enrollment increase above the 30% that's allowed by statute, but they're requesting to expand to high school 1 grade at a time. And pursuant to the statute that governs the grade expansion, a school can expand after it meets certain requirements, it can expand 1 year at a time without seeking approval. However, this school does not meet all of those requirements, which is why they're coming before you for an amendment. The 3 requirements are that they've been operating for 3 years. They meet that requirement. They started operating in 2015. The second requirement is that a school is not continually low performing. They also meet that requirement. And the third requirement is that they are in financial compliance. You probably recall this discussion during their renewal discussion, but in 2018, due to a finding on their audit, dealing with a deficit that their board members, that the board had incurred by giving personal loans to cover the middle school expansion, they were put on disciplinary non-compliance, financial non-compliance. Since then, they've made a lot of progress, and this year their audit came back clear, and they were placed on cautionary, which is the lower level. And then, according to school business, with review of the 2020 audit, if things continue in a positive trend, they should be removed from financial noncompliance. But that is what is keeping them from adding that one grade at a time. The materials that I've submitted online, they submitted a very thorough packet of information regarding their program, regarding why they feel confident in their plans to expand, and also submitted their a very detailed high school amendment plan. They have been awarded a 5-year, $1.25 million grant through the U.S. Department of Education. They also have received a $175,000 grant from the New Schools Venture Fund, and their annual fund has been generating revenues of about $300,000 per year.
I mean, I'm familiar with the level of depth of analysis something like New Schools Venture Fund does and due diligence before they fund a school. So I think if, knowing that, knowing obviously the Department of Ed, if these folks kind of are seeing Charlotte Lab as a sure bet, and we just gave them a 7-year renewal?
Yes.
It seems reasonable that we would, move forward and approve this amendment, allowing them to go ahead and move forward with the high school. It seems like all the trend lines are going in the right direction, and the significance of these findings are no longer, they're cautionary, they're no longer high level. That's my interpretation of it.
What's the number of students for 9th grade, Ashley?
They would like to add, let's see, I have 125 students for 9th grade. That would bring them next year to a total enrollment of approximately 842, which is below their maximum allowed 850.
I move that we approve the amendment for Charlotte Lab for high school expansion.
Yes, I second that.
Probably moved to second. And any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
That wraps up amendments.
Can we go ahead and do State Board of Education updates? Is that feasible, possible to just knock that out now?
Shonda was gonna present. Do you want me to just?
Oh, she was.
Wait.
You want me to go?
Okay.
Okay.
Don't have a lot to go over. State Board of Ed at the last meeting did approve the recommendation from Charter School Advisory Board for Movement East amendment request to increase their EDS population in the weighted lottery from 40% to 60%, and to lower their grade span and enrollment size. And they also approved Bear Grass's charter mission statement based on your recommendation. They did discuss 3 items. Discuss the annual report, and I'd like to thank Alex for being there to help present that and answer those questions. They did discuss the renewal recommendations, and they did discuss the grade and enrollment expansion requests that you had approved at the meeting. Of all of those, I think the only one that really generated any discussion was Hopgood's request to add the 9th and the 10th grade.
But they did approve that, didn't they?
Excuse me?
They approved Hopgood,
It
they
was
did
a
not,
first
just discussion,
reading.
first
There was
reading.
last week was discussion, they'll vote on it in February. And Jay's here to give us a quick update on the CSP grant. The letters of intent are due pretty soon.
Yeah, letters of intent for the next cycle are due on Wednesday. As of Friday afternoon, we had 12 letters of intent submitted. Got several more this morning and expecting more over the next 2 days. So we will give you a full written report shortly after the deadline, but also another update in February with a full list of letters of intent and their eligibility status for all schools. Just in terms of the fellowship and other updates, we've had 7 fellowship sessions at this point, 3 in person and 4 virtual. We sent out our virtual session for January last week. Our next in-person session is in February at the College of Education at UNC Charlotte around literacy and differentiated instruction. So very excited about that. And then we've also executed a contract for a content coordinator. This was written into the state grant, and this is the person that's going to help us develop and curate all the content from the fellows' portfolios to then share those publicly on our website.
Awesome. Sounds great. What's the total amount of the grants, both grants together?
36.6 million.
Wow. How much after this year do you think we will have spent? Do you know?
In the first sub-grant cycle, we obligated 3.4 million. We obviously haven't reimbursed all of that yet. I don't have an exact amount of administrative costs that we've spent up to this point. With the supplement, we have roughly 100,000 per year for the fellowship, and then some ongoing PD support that we're working with the Office of Charter Schools on. Obviously, that's sort of new, so we haven't spent a lot of that stuff. Most of it has been just administrative costs at this point, so not a lot. But now with the supplement, we're going to sort of ramp that up. But I don't have a number of how much
How long do we have to spend it all?
We have 5 years. Sub-grantees have 5 years, regardless of when they get it in our cycle, to expend their fund.
Got it. Great.
Jay and his team have done a great job recruiting some new schools. I think you'll be very impressed with the caliber of schools and some of the names that you'll see that are asking for Ms. Grant. Really pleased with that. And his team has done a great job working with the internal ways to make sure that these sub-grantees can start getting some money. No sub-grantee has received a dime yet, and here we are in January. But we do hope January 15th, they should be able to.
Fingers crossed, yes.
So, they've worked really hard to get through that same process. So you can just imagine a lot of schools have spent a lot, because this is a reimbursement grant.
Right.
Spent a lot of money, haven't been reimbursed yet. So I want to publicly thank Jay and his team for working really hard on that. That's it.
All right. Do you want to share?
I will.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to take care of a couple things because I may need to leave a little bit early before, so I want to make sure we hit this before I'm.
Okay. My colleagues and people who are listening in public, I come with a little bit of regret but excitement. I am going to be resigning the Charter School Advisory Board come the end of the month. I'm going to be taking on another role, still working with charter schools, but for right now I'm going to take a resignation here. I just want to say that it has been a blessing to work with each one of you guys. What great leadership is on this board, and with Alex and Stephen. I mean, it's a pleasure to come to these meetings and work with the Office of Charter Schools. And so thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to be your friend and colleague.
Well, Linda Lynn, we're grateful for your service and your advocacy for charter schools in our state and around the country. So thank you for all your work, and hopefully you'll come next month, maybe have lunch with us.
Okay.
Just so we can thank you.
I'm still going to be involved.
So we can thank
so
you,
you'll
yeah.
see.
Yeah. And
Somebody tell me what just happened?
Linda Lynn resigned from the board.
That's what I thought I heard.
No one else is allowed to resign. Okay. And we'll at the next meeting we'll appoint a replacement for the leadership. The policy committee performance committee chair. I was one of so we'll do that at the next meeting. Okay. So about 2:48, and we're ready to hear from the 3 schools that are on the list as starting the year with low enrollment. So if we could have the folks from Tillery come up first, that would be great.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Hi. We'll keep this simple. You don't have a presentation or anything, do you? No. Okay. So if you could just give us an update on enrollment status, how things are going, and then your financials as well, that would be most beneficial.
Okay. Right now, we currently have 62 students. The breakdown of that is 26 are in kindergarten, 19 in first grade, 17 in second grade. We have 24 new applications for next year. The majority of them are kindergarten. We've picked up quite a few since our first parent interest meeting. At the end of December, 100% of our families who have turned in their retention form have indicated that they are returning. I think we have eight outstanding who haven't turned those in, and those aren't due until the end of the month. When we realized that we were going to have less students than anticipated, we immediately reworked our budget. Part of that plan, including having full-time staff vote on a buy-in if they were going to take a 15% pay cut, and we had 83% of staff were in favor for that. Unfortunately, we did lose one staff member, and in the meantime, to cover that class, we had our principal and our remaining staff co-teach that class. Since then, we've been awarded the Access Grant and found out that that funding should come through on Wednesday, as well as we've gotten an answer on how the rest of our state funds will be allotted. So we've been able to hire a replacement teacher for that class. Goodall Consulting has significantly reduced their fee, as well as put in $20,000. We also have from another stakeholder received a $10,000 loan, as well as a $10,000 donation. We've renegotiated with our furniture provider, our technology provider, and we've reduced our rent with our landlord. PTO, parents, myself have all stepped up to do cleaning within the school, whether it's cleaning the bathrooms, anything that we can do. We've received a lot of physical donations from community members, parents, staff, the board, to or within the classroom, anything the teachers and staff may need. The principal and PTO, they've done some fundraising, including ice cream days and their penny wars, and that's raised over $1,000 as well.
Would you like me to speak to the budget?
Yeah,
budget
that would
a
be
little bit
great.
more?
Yeah, if you
Alright,
could talk
sure.
to the budget.
Absolutely. We received a letter from Financial Business Services regarding our allotment from January to the end of the year. In terms of what we are receiving is $42,055 per month. In the letter, I believe that was provided to you all. Additionally, we were able to receive a portion of the Access Grant of what we spent up to a certain amount and what we submitted in terms of finance, or what we submitted, which is going to be, I believe, 37,800 and change that we were that we had submitted and were approved. Our budget was approved by the Access Grant team, sorry. And we've been working with Mariama closely on that and got confirmation. My knowledge is that we will be able to pull down those funds on the 15th. Those funds will be able to help us get through the rest of this month, and then we'll be able to pick up on our payments for the rest of the year. What you see in the budget is all that we owe between now and the end of the year. This includes our negotiated rate, along with a balance of just under $14,000 in terms of a surplus at the end of the year.
That doesn't include your access funding, correct?
That does include the access funding, because we received a letter from Jay, I apologize. Was that letter sent in November or December of when we received the Access Grant? I believe it might early December, so that we would receive those funds and that we'd be able to draw down those funds on December 15th. So on this Wednesday, we will draw down those funds.
And that's the 82,000?
No, the 82,000 that you see there is including the Access Grant funds plus what we expect to receive in Title I and Title II funding. We were quoted, or our estimates for Title I funding were about $50,000. We know that that's not correct because I believe Financial Business Services wasn't able, because of the budget not being passed, reduce our ADM to what our actual ADM was. So we were able to calculate approximately per student the amount, and we expect to have about 24,000. And then unfortunately, I think that the estimate for Title II funding was incorrect, but we used the smaller amount just to be on the safe side regarding
So
that.
82 is your all-in federal funding?
Federal funding, yes.
Okay. And have you completed all the aspects of the Title I grant?
Go ahead.
The Title I grant is in the works. Tina Hinson's coming to Tillery on January 22nd to finalize that with us. But as far as all the other paperwork that we need for it, the MOU and all the documents that need to be uploaded, those are in. So she's coming on the 22nd to be at Tillery with us.
Okay.
And I forgot.
You should do what she says.
And also, that does include federal EC funding that we expect. And we based our number off of 7 students for our December head count. Our December head count ended up being 9 students. So we're a little over there. And our budget also doesn't include the literacy funding, any transfer head count money, and it doesn't include the forfeiture money or the lottery money or anything extra. We're simply going off of Title I, Title II, federal EC, state and local funding, and then the grant, obviously.
Okay. And holding steady at approximately 62 students?
Mm-hmm. And then we've received 4 applications just this weekend, additionally added onto it. And then once we're able to pull down those grant funds, we can then be a little bit, I don't want to say liberal, but be a little bit more generous in terms of be a little bit more generous in terms of how we allocate our funding in terms of marketing, and then Goodall Consulting will be purchasing billboard and doing some marketing as well. On top of that, that's outside of the budget of the school.
Okay. So I think, the board members, any questions?
What's your new enrollment window for next year?
It was from November 15th and runs through the end of this month, but we're considering extending.
If,
Yes.
Yeah, if need be.
So
Yeah,
how
what
many
is
applicants?
your ultimate, what is
How
your
many
ultimate?
applicants have you received?
24.
24.
24?
24.
What's the target for next year?
Enrollment for next year.
Well, we submitted an amendment back in October for our second year enrollment to be 144. But I believe because it was also the designation of our remote status, I believe that the CSAT that you guys have not taken up that yet. But we're looking at 144, but I believe it's 192 we could have up to.
So 144 is your target and what you're going to build your budget on next year, or less than
Actually,
that?
we were building our budget based on 100 students.
Okay.
Okay.
That's smart.
Absolutely.
Do you have any indication of how many students that you currently have are actually going to re-enroll for next year?
We, as
Yeah.
Chrissy mentioned it, sorry.
Out of the retention forms, we've had 87 return them in, and 100% of those 87% are going to return. I think there's 8 outstanding. They just haven't handed them in yet. At the end of the month.
Yeah, they're due by the end of January, so it gives us a good base on what to expect. And then additionally, we've been building a budget based off of not only 100 students. 100 students is kind of, you have 100 students, then we have one that's based off of 80, almost like a break-even type number, so that it shows us getting through, being able to pay our obligations that we owe next year as well. We don't include the grant money. We're not including grant money in those budgets, and they haven't been approved by the board yet, but they're just planning for right now based on how we do month to month and making sure that we have enough, making sure at the end of every month we have enough funds to carry over, because I think with the budget and whatnot, the state funds are coming for, if you have a monthly allotment, we just received notification today, so we won't be able to get those funds until Thursday in terms of state funds. So they're coming about 2.5, 3 weeks into the month. So that's what we've been planning off of. They might come earlier next month because of what's been happening with the budget and whatnot. So we've been planning as conservatively as possible. So payroll and our obligations on that.
So are you currently still accepting students for this year?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But you haven't really had anyone since the beginning of the year?
Can I speak to that, Teresa?
Yes. We have had a few new students enroll, but with that, we've also had 2 or 3 leave the school, so it's kind of balancing itself out with that.
So To date, have you been able to make all your financial obligations on time?
We've been able to make all of our financial obligations. The ones that we have negotiated with are ones that have deferred payment to our second year. So it includes our part of our technology, our rent reduction, and furniture. We were working with Hertz Furniture. That's an item that we had expected. Our payment wasn't due until November, but since we were only allowed to reimburse up until October 15th for the grant, we renegotiated with them on being able to pay our $6,000 this year and then $6,000 next year in terms of our furniture. So they've worked well with us, but in terms of meeting obligations, those are the renegotiated vendors are our only issue. And we've made payroll every single time and through direct deposit. So, when you're starting off as a charter school, we work with BB&T. You have to have the money in your account 3 days in advance before you're able to. And I guess it's kind of how they work with new charters. So typically that would be hard for a school that's cutting it close. But we've been able to make direct deposit every single time.
Good. I mean,
It's Truist now.
I'm sorry.
It's Truist now, right?
Oh well, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But they still have everything is BB&T on everything. They've redone their portal. It looks nice.
Well, your best recruiting tool for new students is results. So are you monitoring your students? Are they making the kind of progress that you would like to see so that you can?
They are, yeah, and we put that in the report, and the parents are also one of our biggest tools. So with our parent recruitment committee, they're working with us on that. So, yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
great.
Just to this is more for the board and Teresa. Eddie and I have had the privilege of working with this board, and the best thing is that when the parents came to the board meeting back in November, they didn't cry. They stood up and they asked, well, how can we help? We're in. How can we help? What can we do? And that's where Teresa and I developed the parent recruitment committee, and they're all in. They understand the demographics of the community the best. They know that this is in such a remote and rural area that in order to recruit, you've got to really kind of hunker down on the relationships that you build with the community. And we pull from 6 different LEAs. And right now, we're looking to possibly pull from 7 based on applications, because now we have a couple applicants from Anson County. So it just shows you our reach. And another thing is being tight on the budget is Teresa has been very frugal. And additionally, we've been able to meet all of our obligations in the Access Grant too. So we could have cut off our bus transportation that we offer, but we didn't. We stuck with it. We found a way to work. The board found a way to make it work, and I'm really appreciative of the way that they've been committed to this school.
So let's assume, so you want to do this again next year?
Yes, of course.
Because you're going to have to, I mean, because I think at least where we sat at the last time we saw you is that, despite being below the threshold, there wasn't a major issue of financial concern, which was what we had seen in the previous school. So we, opted to not act, and that I don't think that grace will be extended if it happens again. I don't feel like we'll be in a position to do that. So I guess I'm in favor of not having to bring them back until, I don't know, we get an update in the summer or June or something like that, so they can just focus on doing their day jobs. But one question I have is, like, it's been 6 months. Like, what is your number one theory as to why you didn't hit the mark and why recruitment was so hard? Does
I think it's just the small community we live in, just something new. Parents are waiting to see what it's really like, what the results are really like. And we had those 64 parents who came and took a chance, not knowing what the building looked like, not knowing anything. And now we have these core knowledge classrooms we can show off, these teachers that love their job, the parents, the students, and that's really how our marketing is going to change this time around, because the parents and the families we have at our school and the students, they are just so on board and they just love Tillery so much.
And you have no tested grade next year, right?
Yes, third grade next.
Third grade is
Yeah.
tested? Oh, I stopped grading after saying, how many third graders?
Well, this year, they don't have a test.
Just
This year,
Right, yeah.
that's what
Yeah,
I meant.
we're
You
just-
have-
yeah, we're
You have
just-
no tested grade this year, so
Correct.
you don't have that challenge out in front of you just yet.
Yeah, I think it's 17 second graders right now, and we hope to fill that out with 24 based on our cap.
Great.
So speaking of marketing, what specifically are you doing? So you speak that you're in a rural location. You guys knew that when you made the application. So what did you not do effectively to open the school that you're doing effectively now?
We've found here recently that we need to go to the people instead of holding maybe the event so much at our location. We need to go to the ball fields and we need to set up booths outside Walmarts. We've participated in all the street festivals and all the fairs and the parades in the past, continue doing that, but make more local connections, whether it's outside Tractor Supply, outside Walmart, in both our county and the surrounding areas we pull from, and just talk to as many people, because we found the majority of parents who found out about us last year, it was just word of mouth, and that's how that's going to be our biggest tool. Our families giving reviews and just speaking to other families, whether it's at church, soccer, karate, dance.
Do you have a county paper?
Yes, we do. It runs once a week.
Well, don't laugh. That's a great place to promote yourself.
Have stories. Let me also say, Anson County does not have any charter school in it. And so if you can get even the parents that are coming from Anson County to talk to their neighbors and get a real good, a carpool,
Of course.
that would be good, because there's no options there.
Do
Okay.
you want to speak recent to we don't want Mrs. Reeves, Miss Reeves. Well, we didn't mean to, we laughed
You
just
scoffed
briefly
at my
because
question. I
I'm
see.
sorry. The newspaper's not our biggest fan.
Not favorable.
Yeah, not charter.
I can understand that. Believe me.
So I think, depending on the other presentations, I'm leaning towards suggesting we have the groups come back in May with a really detailed enrollment report and really giving us confidence that you're gonna have 80
The new
plus
budget.
students in the proposed budget for next year, in May.
Okay.
'Cause I think we need to feel very confident about that.
Of course.
But looks like you guys have been making some hard choices and doing the work, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Great.
While they're still here, and I want to confirm this with Jay, they're going to receive $37,869 through their NC Access grant, and that's all they're going to get for the rest of the year. You guys are aware of that?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what they said. And they said the rest in the 82,000 line was other federal.
Great, want to make sure there's no misunderstanding, and we appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jay.
Blue green. This is 50% of the teaching staff. Who's left at the school?
The other two teachers.
Who's minding the kids?
Yeah, well, there's only 40 of them, so.
Yeah.
it's like-
Staff of 4.
All right, so my question on you all is, how many students did you have when you came? I thought we were at 50. Did we lose 10 more? And if so, how do we lose those 50? Because I know it was 57 month one, but then I think when you were here last, I just remember 50.
Yes.
Have we lost some students, and could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, yes, we lost some students, some due to we lost 3 because they moved back to Philadelphia. We lost a couple because
They
it
all
just
moved
wasn't.
back to Philadelphia? Was it like a family?
They were a set of twins and
going on in
a
Philadelphia?
brother, so they were a family.
Okay.
And some it just wasn't a good fit for them, and others just decided maybe we'll try you guys next year. And
Okay.
just go.
What's occurring?
We were very transparent when we were here last time, and we actually held a parent meeting and really let the parents know what was going on. And honestly, I believe that some of them got afraid that we wouldn't stay open for the remainder of the year and left for
Okay.
that reason.
So, but the people you have now are deeply committed, I imagine.
Yes.
And so you're down to 4 staff members.
That is
Yes.
correct.
Basically, everybody's teaching every day.
Yes.
Okay. And it says in here that you have 20 applications for next year.
Yes, 20 interest applications and verbal confirmation.
Are you doing enrollment yet?
Actually, our enrollment opens tomorrow and
Okay.
runs until February 14th.
Okay. I mean, it seems like you would just,
Window.
I mean, you could extend your open enrollment period so that, then parents don't have to, they're not worried about a lottery, it's just obviously just, you're enrolled right away.
Right.
But, I mean, it really makes no difference without a lottery, because when the enrollment period ends, you just keep enrolling people.
Just keep
It's not
enrolling.
like-
Yeah, I think
It's always open enrollment.
We
I
put the
mean,
date
been there,
to
done that.
create anticipation and urgency.
Sense of urgency.
And
Yeah, that makes sense. So you have 20 letters of interest?
Yes.
And those are for 7th grade, 6th grade?
6 and 7.
6 and
6th
7.
and 7th. And your marketing plan is in here. Seems pretty detailed. Anything you want to highlight?
Well, something we're doing different this year that we didn't do last year is we're starting a transition program. And what that will allow us to do is partner with 5 of the elementary schools that are in our area, specifically within 5 to 10 mile radius of the school. And those are also schools that are low-performing schools. And so our goal here is to allow the parents and the students to come into Blue Green, see what it's like to experience a day in the life of a Blue Green student. We're also helping them in the transition process, so giving them the fundamentals and the tools that they need to transition to middle school, because we know that that can be difficult for a lot of our 5th graders. So we're working directly with the principals and the assistant principals, as well as the counselors, to identify the specific students that we and they believe would fit well within our program.
Okay. And then financially, you've shed some staff members. Obviously, that's keeps the cost down, and you're both teaching. What are the financials like? How is that?
Well, we also were able to decrease our lease payment amount, so that brought the budget to a surplus of $22,288. But those were our biggest cuts with regard to, we cut our salaries, we cut it down to 4 teachers, and then we had the lease payment reduced.
Okay. And so you're still projecting a surplus even off of the
Yes.
current situation. Okay. Great. Other questions for?
I just feel like if they lose any more students, we need to be notified.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm sorry, I
If you
missed
guys
that.
lose
If
any
we
more
lose any
students,
more
we need to
students.
know.
Okay.
Because it's just getting so close to it's so far below at this point. And I think same deal, we would definitely need you to come back with a big update. Given that one of you was 40 students,
Yes.
it seems like with 4 of you, you might have to make some hard decisions, and maybe you're already doing this, but it seems like someone needs to be doing recruitment all the time. Because teaching can just consume you if you're trying to teach half a day, and I don't know. It might be something to think about. Like, someone has to be doing this, pounding the pavement all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Just something to think about.
Okay.
So we thought about that, especially for next year, and then the way that we
For next year.
put our schedule together. I teach majority of the day.
Okay.
Where they teaches.
I have 2 blocks that I teach, morning and afternoon, so I have the full afternoon to work on the business side of things and the recruitment.
Okay.
Whereas Dina is teaching from the beginning of the day to the last block, and so she has that last block of the day, and we work late. We do what we have to do.
Yeah.
But
We're there
we
till 7.
Yeah, and we also have our board helping out a lot with the marketing and recruitment. So in the marketing plan that you received, you'll notice that every board member has been identified with a specific task to make sure that we get those students in the door.
I mean, I'm going to ask the same question, because we have people coming before us telling us they want to open a new charter school in the Winston-Salem area, and then I'm like, we had Blue Green with 40 kids. What happened? Now that you're 6 months out, have you reflected some more, and do you have a general operating theory on why the numbers why you weren't able to hit the targets that you originally outlined?
I think it really stems back to when we made the announcement that we were opening school a week late and that we were moving into a different facility. That took our enrollment all the way down like 80%. So that started it. And then from there, there's this fear, I think, that the community has whenever there's something new that comes into the area and they aren't exactly quite sure what's going on with it. So a lot of that, I think, played a part. And from here on out, we'll be very careful with what messaging we put across and how soon we let the public know about some of our situations, because looking back on it, we could have still started school on time with the idea that we had of having field trips the first full week. But I think just putting the name out there of that building that wasn't very safe and sanitary really had the public not really on our side at that point.
That'll kill it. How are your kids doing academically?
Yeah,
You've
that's
done your
the other thing.
benchmarks or are you doing them like currently?
We did do a set of benchmarks. We did the NC check-ins. I'll let Dina talk on that. But we also want to keep in mind that we have really reached out to low-income, low-performing students. And so we take that into consideration. But I'll let her share the scores.
They can meet growth.
Yes, they are meeting growth. We have seen that from the first benchmark that we did at the very beginning in August to the one that we did in December. You want to talk on the scores? Or?
Did y'all want to hear the scores? Or
Yeah, sure.
In ELA for sixth grade, I think we were at 55%. For fifth grade, we were at 45% proficient. For math, which is kind of our lowest, it's at 22%, and for fifth grade, and 38%. We've already put in intervention plans and also looked into some educational intern tutors to come from the local colleges to kind of help fill in those gaps with our students.
Okay. I definitely know the math scores were a little bit, they seemed a little bit lower, or in ELA scores a little bit lower in fifth grade than they were in some of the upper grades that I saw, but, all right, so obviously it sounds like you're focused. I mean, it's small, so you're seeing every kid every day.
Right.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to turn the corner and get those enrollment numbers up, and then you all can come present at the recruitment enrollment session for Ready to Open, right, Dr. Williams? If they can make it through, then maybe they can come and help show people, look, this is what you have to, this is how serious it really can be, right?
And we'll do that.
Yes, we have no problem.
You could say you got to be ready to really grind it down to the bare bones. Okay.
Question about board member?
Yep.
You also lost a board member?
We did. We kind of hunkered down on it and said, look, we need the board to step it all the way up. And we had one person who just said that they couldn't put forth that much effort to what we were asking them to do, and she resigned.
Do you plan to replace that person, or are you looking to build your board?
Yes.
Yes, we are in the process of currently rebuilding our board.
Your last minutes online from September, has the board met recently?
We did not meet in November. We had to cancel that meeting because enough people did not show up. We did not have a meeting scheduled in December, and so our next meeting is January 21st, which we'll vote to approve the October minutes, and that's when those October minutes will go on the site.
Great. You want to make sure you get all your meetings in this year, in the calendar year.
Yes.
even if it's a called meeting, you know.
Yeah, we go back and forth between conference call and face-to-face, so.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll plan on seeing them again in May, and just don't let the Office of Charter Schools know if you shed any more students. And let's hope that that doesn't happen.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monroe is next.
Should I just go ahead and start?
Yep, jump in.
My name is Jim Stegall. I'm chairman of the board of Monroe Charter Academy. This is Dr. Camilla Ford, who's our principal. That's Willie Owens, another board member.
All right, so you have 83 students now,
Yes, sir, we do.
and your open enrollment period is,
It's ongoing right now. It runs until the 28th of February.
okay. And you are anticipating having a lottery.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah, we're looking at, possibly second grade, just because we're close to the cap of what we were approved of the 24, and kindergarten.
Okay.
So what's our grade span right now?
Grade span is
Same as Tillery.
K to 2.
We're K3 now, K4 next year.
How's the data in third grade looking?
Excuse me?
How's the data in third grade looking?
Which data?
Testing.
Enrollment or?
Performance, sorry.
Yeah, sure, you
All
can
right.
talk about that.
So in third grade, the data that we've taken so far is in September, the third graders took the BOG. Out of those students, we have a lot of growth to go. We have one student that scored a level 3, one that scored a level 2, and the rest scored level 1s. Out of the rest of the students that scored level 1s, 3 of them are considered exceptional children students. So that's our data with the BOG, excuse me. And then we've also had NWEA data as well that we've taken with the third grade. So it gave us a benchmark to know exactly which direction we need to move in.
And when are you going to do your mid-year NWA map assessment?
That's going to be the third week in February.
Okay. Okay, so 83 students. And
Applications. 29.
yeah, any questions on their budget?
It's very tight.
So you're currently projecting a $29,000 surplus, is that right?
That's correct.
How many applications have you received for next year?
We've received 31 of brand-new applications, and so far 37 that are going to return. For our intent, that is going to stay open until February 28th, as well as new enrollment. And if we need to extend the open enrollment period, we will do that.
And are you expanded to fourth grade next year?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we are.
Would you have flexibility in your scheduling? If, I think you mentioned second grade, you might have to have a lottery. You have enough flexibility where if you're slightly over, you just accept them all and over enroll? Okay.
Yeah, you get local funds.
What's the main strategy in the enrollment and marketing plan that you'd like to highlight?
One of the things that we did is we've partnered up with a Head Start program, Head Start school called, I believe, Weddington Center in Monroe. They actually have 2 Head Start. Through my meeting with the principal there, realized that they didn't even know that we were open as a charter school. So it gives parents there an opportunity. So we'll be communicating back and forth, getting flyers out. The board has also taken upon themselves, like they did this last time, is to do face-to-face, door-to-door recruitment as well. We will also be updating our flyers and mailers that are going out, as well as having conversations with other preschools, daycares around in the area to just let them know about us, what we offer, and why we're different from other schools as well.
Do you guys bus your students?
Yes, we do.
So I suggest that you take your bus to the Head Start and bring children to your school.
So that's one of the things that we talked about with the Head Start, with the Head School, is having an opportunity for their parents to come and tour our facility, even if it's during a time that we have school in session, so that they can actually see how the curriculum is being delivered. Yes, ma'am.
We're also having a billboard put up in a very high traffic area on Highway 74 in Monroe, very close to the school. That's being funded by Goodall Consulting.
That's great.
What do you all attribute now that you're 6 months out, what do you attribute the low enrollment to?
And then you can piggyback. I think one of the major things that happened in Monroe is when Monroe Charter was supposed to open a year ago. You had a high number of families that were going to come. I believe it was anywhere between 128 and 150. And so when it didn't happen, it took the faith of the school of being what they needed for it to be a go. And so we took a hit in that area. Another hit that we took that we saw during this year when new parents were enrolling is the local school district. There was, parents were getting phone calls in a non-nice manner, just letting them know that if they were to come to our school, that they wouldn't be able to go back to homeschool if they wanted to. So it was quite a few little barriers that we had to overcome this year.
I don't think that's legal.
Oh, yeah. We're 23 years in the business and still get those calls.
Okay. Other questions from the board? You want to do this again?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, don't lose any more students, and we will see you probably in May for a more detailed update.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Board, I'd just like to interject that Kamala was named one of the most 100 most influential people in Union County this year. So pretty good.
Oh, congrats.
Way to go.
Let's see what you can do, Cameron.
And for good reasons.
Yes.
Make sure to shop that around.
Put that in your marketing materials.
That's right, that's right.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, I see Dr. Curry and some other folks. Come on up, Ms. Blunt, for our monthly update.
And we have Mr. Mullins, our HR director as well.
Great. And do we have a PowerPoint?
We have some information that we submitted, and the first thing that we wanted to.
Which is great. We're happy to look at that on our computers here.
Yep, to provide to the board is some benchmark data. Mrs. Blunt is here to walk you through some of the benchmark data that we recently just completed, and we submitted to you. I can click that.
Is that in the progress update? Data comparison.
Data comparison.
Got it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for seeing us this time of day. Just to go over, I know that we presented the benchmark data the last time, and there were two parts that we wanted to kind of just quickly review for today. One part was that I think there was some discussion about seeing how our benchmark data compared kind of to where the state averages were. So I did go back in and put that state average column. But then if we scroll down to the bottom, as you know, we haven't done all of our benchmarks yet for this second quarter. We did our high school ones because they did a the end of quarter or end of term benchmark to get ready for their exams, which they're actually taking starting today. And so we have our EOCs and CTE courses that are starting today. So this was their last round of benchmarks to get ready for that. Our elementary and middle school are taking their benchmarks this week as well, while the high school is taking their EOCs and CTEs. And so
with benchmark testing, is that something that they do over the computer at home?
Yes, they do it over the computer. They're doing it on the.
What's the testing platform?
It's Case 21.
Okay.
We do it on a Mastery Connect. Yes.
Yep.
And
How
so
far is this?
what I wanted to include was just a little bit of the comparison, just to be able to see where the students scored from the first round benchmark. So that's going to be in, I think my column shows a little bit larger here, but it's that column that has the yellow, gray, and then the 2 red at the bottom. And so we have, that's the second quarter, thank you. That's the fall, that final benchmark that they just did. And then it compares to where it says that midterm to final in the green section on the end. That's just showing the difference in scores from their first round benchmarks at the midterm to their final benchmarks. So just to see the comparison. One thing that we wanted to note was that where I have the colors that are yellow and then that light pink and then the 2 reds are comparing it to where the state averages were at the end of the year last year. So I was just looking at our benchmarks to see where our benchmarks fell in comparison to the state averages. And as you see for the Math 1, it was 40.6 for the final midterm, for the final benchmark, and so that was less than a point away from the state average at the end of the year last year. The Math 3 was a 45.5, which was just, it should be red, but it was so close I had to make it light pink. But it was 45.5, so it was just barely over a point more, 1.3 difference than the state average last year. And then we have the last two, which are still not where we wanted them to go. They're getting closer, but trying to meet, not just beating our prior results, but being able to beat the state averages. Now, of course, the next, oh, go ahead.
When you're when we're looking at this, the 18.5, for example, in NC Math 1,
Yes,
is that the EOG last year?
Last year.
EOC's last year.
yes,
And then you're saying the fall benchmark this year, not the EOC, is 40.1?
yes, the benchmarks. We're taking EOCs now, so we haven't done, so that'll be
Okay.
the next line of comparison. I'll take off that midterm to final comparison when I put in the end of year. I keep this running data to be able to see, and it's also good because one of the questions that we talked about last time we were here was comparing our benchmark data to the actual state test, how it comes out in the end, to see if it's a norm test, to see if it's coming out and giving us the results that we want to see, if it's a good comparison. And so that's why we just kind of have this running record. So once we take our fall midterm, fall EOCs and CTEs, which we're taking this week, that'll go in that last column where it says midterm to final, where I just did a little comparison on the end. That'll go in that column, and that'll help us, one, see if we're making the gains that we need to make, even though it's only half the students because it's half year. We have the other half of the students that are taking it second semester. But it'll give us to see if we're on the right road, if we're making the gains that we need to make. We'll be able to compare to last year's final scores. We'll be able to compare to the state averages, and we'll be able to compare it to our benchmark data to see if the benchmark data has given us that realistic view that we actually want to have. So that's
Great.
why all of those data points are up there together.
When was the fall 19 benchmark given to the students? How far
Sure,
into
they
the
took
school year?
midterm 1 in October, and then they took their final benchmark in December. And so that only gave them about 2 weeks to kind of fill those gaps. So they got the data back right at the end of December, right before we went out for break, to be able to take that last week and a half to 2 weeks right before they took the actual EOCs this week to kind of fill any gaps. So looking at those prioritized standards, figuring out where the biggest gaps were, and trying to fill in those holes. We know we don't want to over-test them, but at the same time, we want to be able to have some information and figure out, now that you've completed the majority of the coursework, are you where you need to be, and where are those gaps that we need to fill? Where can we get some of those biggest gains? Where are those prioritized standards that we need to hit the most?
Yeah, the reason I'm asking that question, just to be transparent, was one of the primary drivers for separating from your prior EMO was the flexibility to use your own curriculum, a different curriculum, I should say. And so just be curious to track this.
Yes.
Because it's probably a little too early to, my guess would be it's too early to tell yet whether that's becoming true.
Right.
Because there's probably a variety of factors here, including you may have just attracted students this year that are higher,
Sure.
are more prepared. So.
Or less. And I think that's always the case, to be able to look at all the different factors, but that is one of the things that we want to do. Even though we won't have full testing, we won't have EOG data. Obviously, when we finish this term of testing, we'll just have the EOC data, but it'll at least give us some type of view to be able to look at comparing to the end of the year last year to see if the data that we're getting, that we're taking this week, that we'll get back in a couple of weeks to see if that data comes back and gives us a true comparison, and if our benchmark data is really showing us a true evaluation of what our students can do.
You collecting any data this year to show time in course and how it differed from previous years?
I don't know that we're looking at it to see how it differs. We are looking at the amount of time they spend in a course. That is data that we
Yeah, I
collect
saw
from
that report.
Edgenuity.
I just wondered how
yes.
that compares to other years.
I don't know that we have it to be able to compare from it because I don't know that our old system, it didn't calculate time in the course in the same way. And so this is something that's kind of automatically collected within the system. And so we're able to collect that data and pull those reports and see how much time students are actually keying in stuff in the system. We didn't have that same way of collecting it last time, or we don't have the data that shows that way that we collected it last time. But we are using that to be able to determine if students are putting in the appropriate amount of time, are they getting the results that they should get?
Is Case 21 the same benchmark you used last year?
Middle school used it last year and high school used it a little bit. I think they did it for a midterm to get a kind of test run through it. Elementary did not use it last year.
Predictability for you?
I'm sorry?
Did it have a good predictability?
It did. There were certain courses that came out with a better scale than others. So, for example, biology actually came out fairly similar to where they ended up faring at the end of the year. So it just kind of depended on the courses to some extent. But it was also the way that we used it. We didn't use it with the same level of fidelity that we're using it this year. It was really just a test run. Like middle school used it because I worked with it in middle school, and so we kind of used it a little bit more. But we didn't have that same level of school-wide implementation of it and we didn't use the instructional components that are in there as well to be able to use it for mini assessments, to be able to use it to collect data ongoing like we're doing this year.
Can I ask a financial question? Who's finance? I mean, if you want to talk about finance, I can.
I can.
Usually get up and talk about academics, but yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Just was a little confused in looking at your approved adjusted budget document, where you talk about the year-to-date. At the end, when you talk about depreciation expense, total expenditures including depreciation, which is the same as total expenditures before depreciation, but then you talk about a net decrease in fund balance of basically 4.1 million, and then it shows a negative ending fund balance under the year-to-date, but then shows a positive fund balance in the approved adjusted budget. Can you just kind of walk me through that real quick?
I will say our financial CFO is calling in, and it's a little bit early. They were going to the doctor, so our CFO will be on the line at 3:45.
Okay. Do you have? Well, I mean, do you have a positive or negative fund balance?
So the fund balance, and answer the question, our projected fund balance at the end of this year would be over 400,000. It's the 420,000 that you see at the bottom. So we are projecting a positive fund balance of 420,000. And there's a cash flow of just a little over 2 million that the board has access to.
And this budget that you presented, it says year-to-date. What is that date through?
That is at the November. That is through November. Our board just met last week in December to do the budget amendment. So what you're seeing year-to-date is from the beginning of the school, July until November.
So I mean, am I reading this correctly that I don't know if I am or not, because you've got the beginning fund balance, which doesn't have anything there for year to date, and then you've got a decrease in the fund balance of about 4.1 million. I mean,
I think it's missing a cell in there. I think
it feels like something's missing there because otherwise, I mean,
it's returning.
You're not going 4.1 million expenses over revenue, are you?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
I mean, I guess I'm trying. What was your fund balance at how much money did you have in your fund balance at the beginning of the year?
At the beginning of the year, we had about 250,000.
And then you're saying you'll have an increase of 420,000 this year. So then at the end of the year, you'll have around 600,000 as a fund balance.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, and I think that's something that as a school with 2,000 students, you're going to need to want to run a higher projected surplus and get that fund balance up, because before with Pearson, you had a corporation behind you that has a vested interest in your financial health and is gonna ensure that you're solvent given something unexpected happening. You know. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a mistake in the
Yeah, there is
spreadsheet.
something's weird there at the.
Looks like they
We're
haven't
at
drawn down
deficit.
any of their federal funds as yet.
No.
Their revenues to date.
Yes.
You've not drawn any federal funds down?
That is correct. We have not drawn any federal funds, correct. That is correct.
Is that gonna be a problem, given it's January? I mean,
They just released.
No,
it.
they
I
just
just
released
got
it.
my letter like a week ago.
Yeah. It was just, this was before it was released, which was, as the chair said, about a week ago. So, no, we have not drawn any federal. We've been operating under fund balance and state funded.
so that
Is that going to
accounts-
make up the difference in the deficit?
That's about 2 million of it, probably.
I think there's something wrong with that. It's return. It looks like that cell is returning the same. It's like that. If there isn't a, it's supposed to add, and it's just returning the same number because it's adding 0 to it.
It just doesn't
Lynn?
have the, it just doesn't
Could you
have the
comment?
beginning fund balance. It
Right. Yeah, it has nothing in there.
So it's dropping it in automatically because it
Right.
doesn't have anything.
Maybe when you're a finance person, we don't.
I mean, it's something
We
that,
could just.
if you've got money in the bank
Yes.
and you're not
They did in
spending
that
more than you're
report that we
there.
asked them.
Yeah, I mean, do they have, I mean, it's not a big deal. I just think somebody needs to look at that because I think that that's wrong.
Yeah, it shouldn't really have been uploaded like that if that's,
Right.
unless you're telling us there's a really big problem. Okay, and you said in your report that you hired Mr. Mullins, who's here today.
Yes. He's,
Dr. Mullins?
Mr. Mullins, and he also, in the question about the Director of Operations, Mr. Mullins will be serving as HR as well as Director of Operations.
So he's the new Director of Operations.
That's correct. So I think that was one of the questions that we answered. So he'll be here monthly as well to answer operations as well as HR.
Okay, great. Could we talk to him real quick? Yes, sir. So you're the Sandhills regional principal of the year from what school?
Clement Elementary.
All right. What
Over in
drew you to?
Over in Sampson County.
Okay.
Top 5 elementary
That's
school
where I
in
did
the
my
state.
student teaching.
At Clement?
Clement, so.
Well, I know you're a great person then.
Top
Great.
5 elementary school in the state. All right.
Great
I like that.
school.
I like
It's a
that.
wonderful school, great staff. They make any principal look good.
That's right. All right. Humble too. Okay. Hey, so I'm just curious, what drew you to want to pursue this?
Well, I was at the end of my brick and mortar tenure. I mean, I could retire, so me and Mr. Curry's worked together in the past, and opportunity presented itself, and I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to work with Charter. And I've always been almost 30 years in brick and mortar, so I wanted to come in, and I like human resources. I did human resource and operations in the past, and even though I love being a principal, I loved the human resource aspect of it. And I reached out, and opportunity presented itself, and started in July, and here we are 6 months later, still trying to.
So what was your role when you started in July?
Human resource.
Okay, but you were not the director of operations.
Right, that was Christina Robinson.
So given as a person that's relatively new to the organization, what's been the kind of something that's the Cyber Academy does well and something that you need to get better at?
Well, I think
given the extensive experience that you have
Right.
operating the best school in the country, in the state, you said, or top 5.
Right. Just, I say in a brick and mortar school, teachers know and that the principal could pop into their classroom at any time. Somebody from that district office, in charters, virtual charter, they know we're not going to show up at their house. So if you're not motivated, you can hide. I share that with a lot of people. It's an opportunity to be mediocre unless there's a lot of oversight. So there has to be, I feel like in virtual charter, more oversight than even in a brick and mortar. And making sure we have the high expectations. We know what the results, Ms. Blunt just shared results. We know that we've got some improvement to do. And some of the things that I've been working on as an HR person is I'm a firm believer is you help people get better, but if they don't want to get better, you always hear the term, get them in the right seat on the bus, but some people don't belong even on the bus. So we've had to take some people off the bus, and we're still in the process. Weekly, I'm talking with Mr. Curry about recommendations and trying to figure out how we can get better. Because even if we were an exceeded growth school and every kid was proficient, we could still improve. So, we're going to continue to try to improve. I've enjoyed the different environment, learning what virtual charter is about. But obviously, there's been some challenges because of the transition. But also because I feel like you have to have even more oversight at a virtual charter. So we're working on trying to get things better, and we're going to do that.
Makes sense. Okay. Appreciate that. All right. Other questions?
I just had a question. You may have just alluded to it. You don't need to get into the details, but it looks like you had 3 staff members resign since the last time you were before us. Is that expected, unexpected, part of the overall improvement plan?
Well, some were expected because, we've had a lot of meetings with folks that are mediocre, and we either give them a chance to get better or resign, or I say I'll go to Mr. Curry with a recommendation for dismissal, and some of those folks have resigned. Some have been unexpected, but some is because one of our language arts vacancies, the teacher got an opportunity to teach right down the road in her home county. And those types of situations, it's hard to, it's going to happen. So some we've welcomed the resignation, some we were surprised. But I'll say this, with the turnover, it gives us even more of an opportunity to hire better people. And so I hate that we've lost some people. I'm happy that some have left. I'm an honest person. But I still think no matter whether we expected them to leave or not expected them to leave, Mr. Friend, that it gives us an opportunity to make sure we're hiring the people that we need at North Carolina Cyber Academy. Because I think that's been the other thing, as the question was asked. I think sometimes we've hired some people and they didn't understand that virtual charter is different than brick and mortar. And everybody's not suited for virtual charter.
Or a teacher.
Or a teacher.
Or a teacher, period. And some administrators are not suited for virtual charter.
All right. Other questions?
Drop in enrollment. You're at 2133 now. I realize this is from, you said November, last of November.
Okay.
Have you seen any uptick since then, or do you think this is kind of where you're going to be for the rest of the year?
Okay, so we, Friday, I got an update from our enrollment team, and the enrollment was 2255. And of course, that was after this document was sent to the board, but 2255 was enrollment. And there is some that are ready to be placed, and some students that have part of their packet ready. They've not completed everything to be placed yet. But with our enrollment, those that are ready to be placed in the school, and those that are starting the process of being placed in the school, if all that works and everything gets done, we'd be at 2,550 kids. Based on Friday's email from our enrollment team.
So with high school courses are on this semester, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So are some of these new applications, high school students coming in?
January 22nd, when second semester starts, they're ready for enrollment. They're ready to be added to our enrollment.
And for students who wish to enroll that are in core classes, when I say core, classes that have a state assessment, you do not enroll them after the 10th day of the semester. You do?
We do, because our count day is after 20 days. So we're gonna cut off enrollment second semester February 20th. And we're gonna have a plan in place to catch those kids up. Ma'am?
With an EOC course, you're not supposed to make, in a semester course, you're not supposed to make an enrollment change after the 10th day.
So we actually just had this discussion this morning. So when we're talking about students that enroll after that 10th day, that's students that are transferring from another school. So if you are already enrolled, if you were already enrolled into the course and you're transferring, after the first week or two, you decided you didn't want to go there and you decided to change over to us, or you finally get all your paperwork together and you were already enrolled in English 2, then we continue that enrollment.
That one, yes.
Right, so those are the ones that would continue on. So if you are not in an EOC course already, our second semester starts on the 22nd. If you're not already in an EOC course, you don't enroll in an EOC course coming in after the 10th day because of the 10-20-day window. And we are on a block schedule, so it would be the 10-day window. But if they were already enrolled in it and then they're transferring over, they would still maintain their enrollment in the EOC course.
So then, to answer the rest of the question is, after the 20th day for high school, you no more.
For everyone, yes. So we have, right, because once
On
we.
both semesters.
Exactly, yes.
Have you taken, I'm assuming you've opened your applications for enrollment for next year?
Yes,
During
ma'am.
that window?
Yes, ma'am, we started.
And have you received intents for your current student body? How do you collect intentions for them?
Intent to re-enroll.
No, not the intent to re-enroll, I'm sorry. So what we have is the students that we have now, the students that he's calling the numbers for, those are students that are enrolling for second semester to start on the 22nd. Our enrollment kind of stays open for anyone that wants to start for the next year. And so after we finish all of the ones that would want to enroll for this semester, then we could see if there's anyone. But if they're enrolling now and they turn in paperwork and they say, we want to put our information in, but we don't want to enroll until next year, we could put that on hold. Our enroll department can hold all of that information. But we have not done our intent to return for the next year because we haven't started second semester yet.
When is a good time that you actually get an estimate on that?
I think we did it in March, if I'm not mistaken. It's March when we do the intent to return.
I just want to add a couple of things. The enrollment, the budget is based on 2,200 students. So I think you've heard Mr. Mullins talk about the projection is about 2,500, so that'll certainly be some adjustments, at least on the revenue side for the budget. So this budget is based on the 2,200. And so Vice Chair Walker, certainly I can talk after. If any questions about the budget, we can certainly respond back to the CSAP. If there are some
I think we
questions.
could just look at an updated document next month.
Just lastly, on the governance board side, there has been some changes on our board. Another board member was added in December. There are 11 members on our board. It started out this year with 5, so it has over doubled. And the board in December, they had their annual officer elections, and so we do have a chair, vice chair, and secretary and treasurer. So
The
board is
same
strong.
people or new people?
So the board did not have a vice chair. So the vice chair is someone that's been on the board for now 3 years, and the secretary is a new member to the board, as well as the treasurer.
The chair is the same?
And the chair is the same, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? We will see these guys next month as per the stipulations. And, any other questions for cyber?
I do apologize with all deference. We do have our board member, Ms. Deborah Williams, here with us.
Okay.
And she's actually the secretary, the newly elected secretary, and then also.
Welcome.
She is certainly not a stranger to the department. She served many, many years here at the department. And certainly we have board members that have called in, so thank you, Ashley, for providing the call-in number. There's board members that have called in.
Good. Well, thank you, Dr. Curry. We'll see you next month. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda Dillingham asked me to announce, just remind everyone, I don't know if this is applicable to board members necessarily, but those that are not in the Raleigh area, but there's the Charter School Fair taking place at January 25th at the Raleigh Convention Center from 10 to 2. People listening out there. And I think at this point, Mr. Walker.
Alex, were we gonna?
Well, we're gonna talk about
we
our
were
meeting.
gonna talk about the February meeting and whether we needed.
Oh
the
yeah,
second
February meeting.
One day.
One day. Definitely don't think we need more than one day.
Day.
Do we need
Half
to
a
have
day
do
would
we-
be fine.
Do we need to have a February meeting?
Yes.
Monday the 10th is great.
May I make the motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Can I just have a sidebar? 2
Sidebar.
seconds. the new website, why is the Office of Charter Schools not under districts and schools? You have to seek them out under students and families. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble finding the charter school stuff on the new website. I don't know.
You do a Google search every time.
Yeah, that's basically what I do is I do a Google search and then half the links
We could fix
are
that.
dead now.
Yeah, we've had to add like multiple links to the different drop downs for
why-
things that overlap.
Why wouldn't innovative schools be under districts and schools?
Because they're not traditional districts and schools, and then you have.
Yeah, but
Anyway.
it's under students and families?
As options, school choice options.
It's not the most.
Could be under
logical-
both, could be under both.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You might wanna put it under both.
It's just not the most
At least have
logical
one.
place to house it.
User friendly.
Did we need Shonda to talk to us about the workflow and OCS
I'm gonna do it next week.
news next time? No worries. Great.
I just got worried when it said OCS News, Miss Shonda Cooper, that
That's the
somebody
scoop
else was
with Coop.
leaving, and I was not. I was
No,
not
you
going
were
to be
just
happy.
skipping that.
I mean, I was going to like flip tables or something.
She's good. No.
Steven, I wanna see you flip this one.
Don't test me.
How about,
All
I've got a-
right.
What time's the ball game?
Scoop with Coop next month.
We got the ball game. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye. The last one.
Meeting adjourned. Have a great one.
Oh, that's right, we had to get you on the record.
That's right.
She did.
Okay.
I did.
Go Tigers.
Yes, you didn't say anything.